and welcome back to part 37 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. We're getting closer to the end, but we need to get out of this goddamn drum first of all. Just because we're satiating Hojo's scientific curiosity, we're stuck in here until he's satisfied. But it's still a lot of the same thing, as I mentioned last time. You're doing a section, swapping to the other party, and working from there. It's just every now and then Red will come in and do a gimmick so you get a few seconds to breathe. Every now and then you go out into like this actual drum inner sanctum where you get to eventually pull a switch or something that allows the other team to proceed. Or at this one where it breaks and it's like, oh, enemies drop right in front of Red. Oh, and right in front of us. Great, so now we've got some extra combat to do. But Red's fighting on his own, so we need to kind of get the Red 13 as soon as we can deal with this. Alright, let's go get Red. Oh, he seems to be in a bit of trouble. Oh my goodness, goodbye Red. But you see, now that he's like that, we need to inform Aerith and Tifa, because now you're on a time limit. No matter what you do, or like what situation you have Red in, this section will always have a timer on it. It's weird. Like, Red is completely immortal when he's a guest character with you. The moment he's separated, they suddenly slap a time limit on you. As far as I'm aware, it takes the exact amount of time every time. Like, that bar could be replaced with a clock and it wouldn't make a difference. I might be wrong on that, but as far as I'm aware, the amount of damage he takes to make that bar drop is identical in its intervals, sort of thing. Like, it will take the same time to reach 0 every time. And the only reason I say that is because that's kind of how it went with me in hard mode. It took me a couple attempts to get this section in hard mode because of these fuckers taking forever to kill. Red actually went down a couple times because of these things. You know, they're constant diving in and out. Thankfully, there's only 2 of them as opposed to 3, which I guess every little glimmer helps. Alternatively, I'd highly recommend haste to try and get that damage percentage high enough to get them to berserk as soon as possible, and pay heavy attention to when they go to cast anything to try and avoid those impending stops. There's not too much you can do to actually get out of the way of them. Like, you only have so much time for it, and it's highly likely that your ally will get caught, but if you can mitigate the risk at least somewhat, you should be trying to. You know, it's like the whole thing with the frogmen that would try and cast the frog stays condition on you in the sewers. It's not always easy to spot when they're casting the spell on you, but if you can keep an eye on it, it makes life a little bit easier to try and deal with. But your second encounter, remember those like mech suit things, the little Gundam guys, that they had the enhanced shock troopers in them? It's just a shock trooper. And as I mentioned before, they really don't have that much health, so this encounter thankfully ends pretty quickly. Once you're done, however, you're safe, because you get through here, and now you're back to Red. That's all it is. It's 2 fights, and you're back to Red. But in hard mode, that first fight gave me an annoying amount of hassle to get through way back when. And then I ended up having Red die a couple times before I actually got through it. Which might sound absolutely crazy, but it's just what happens sometimes. The bar remains here, but I think now that's when the time limit, let's say, deactivates and it becomes more genuine, like Red can get hit and it affect the bar. But at the same time, this is when Red suddenly starts using, you know, actual skills, because he kind of just stands there. But now he's using actual skills, he will fight back and do most of the work for you.
You okay?
I am now.
Nice one.
Have Cloud and Barrett found anything?
Actually, they just found the entrance to the 4th ward. But to unlock it, they have to access the central terminal, which they cannot do from their position.
Maybe we can get to it instead.
Yeah, let's try.
Alright, and now we have our party swap. Red is now on Tifa's team as opposed to Cloud's team. So, and I like that they did that. Even if it's a bit of a crazy situation and like the way they set it up and whatnot, making it so the guest party member like still gets time with all of the current party. Like I said, he is a main party member, he's just guest in terms of playability right now. And the reason why I always use the word guest is because in older Final Fantasies, that's exactly what they would call it. In Final Fantasy 12 and 15, they're both being very good examples of what I mean. Both of those games have guest party members where you can't control their equipment and whatnot, but they are a functional party member. That's basically what Red 13 is in this game, and he'll become an actual party member in the next part, presumably. I'd be very surprised and ultimately disappointed if he's not actually playable in part 2. Because I get it with this part, because it's only for this chapter, it's so late in the game, it is a little bit like, yeah, I get it, it would have been nice, but whatever. But if it's in future parts as well, that Red is only a guest that you can't control, I think that would be a huge missed opportunity. Because having Red 13 as an actual playable force automatically makes him super interesting to me for the remake, because he's not human, you know? Like, he doesn't, like, you don't have to worry about human proportions. It's an entirely different ball game when controlling, you know, a lion-dog thing. It's the same way that I'm looking forward to how they will handle Kate Sith, or Kaishi. It's because Kaishi's not a human thing either. We actually, to jump the gun and spoil a little the original game, we actually saw Kaishi extremely briefly in this game already. When the Sector 7 plate was actually collapsing and there was that CG cutscene, we saw like this cat thing with a crown, this tiny cat thing with a crown run on and like fall to its knees and punch the ground. That was Kaishi. That's like the only glimmer to the future that you get really in this game, is that, yeah, you get to see Kaishi for like a very brief window there, that Kaishi is in the city and did get to witness the plate fall itself, unable to do anything to stop it itself.
We can't use it for some
As to what on earth Kaishi actually is and where it will fit into the game, well, you have to just play the original and find out, won't you? Yeah, you have to just find out. I think that's the biggest thing that I want out of this Let's Play. For anyone that watches, I don't want to just encourage people to try the remake that I love. I want you to try the original. I want you to see where a lot of this came from and learn for yourself why it became so beloved. Because a lot of people try and throw the whole, oh, it's overrated, this game's better, yada yada. And although I do intend to agree that there are a couple Final Fantasies I prefer over the original 7, overrated, to me, is sounds of ignorance. Because this game, as I mentioned before, straight up redefined its genre. It's a landmark game. It literally rebuilt the road that all JRPGs now walk across. It reinvented the wheel in a manner that now all adopt. Overrated, I feel like, is a word that gets thrown around way too often, when it really just means I don't like this thing that people like. When in reality, like, it's just that. It's not that it's overrated at all. Every game, even the games I personally don't like, are worthy of their praise to an extent of whatever reason they do. Knocking it down just because, oh, it's overrated, feels like undercutting the entire discussion for no good reason.
You hear that? Run! Blind fish spot here is trying to turn us into mincemeat.
But speaking of cutting, it's time for the Swordipede, an enemy that was originally a normal enemy, and is the last instance of this happening, a normal enemy getting promoted to a boss. I told you before when we fought that Cthulhu looking thing, the specimen, that there was one more instance of a normal enemy getting a promotion to boss. This is it. The way it kind of works is that you can only really harm the head. The body has like a 99% resistance to everything, and your sword will bounce off it, so it's usually not worth it. It has a lot of AoE attacks on it though, and it has a lot of like body status attacks, like you just saw there, where it made it so its entire body was a hitbox, so there was very little we could do. The saw on its mouth is an active hitbox always, which is why you saw me try and Counter-Strike, like get in the way to get a free Counter-Strike out of it. The only annoying thing with it in this first phase, and it's the way they try and work it, is that both teams have one physical attacker and one ranged attacker, right? Like it's Cloud and Barret, it's Tifa and Aerith. The Barret and Cloud team feel like the weaker of the two when dealing with this fight, because it feels like magic is the biggest like pile driver for dealing with this thing, especially when it starts flying right up. However, magic, that's Aerith's game. Barret can do some, which is why I always give him some, but it's not enough. When you do enough damage, the Swordipede will ditch the arena and you'll get your option. You can see it in the corner, it says hold square to bring it up. It's literally transitioning from one team to the other. We're now going to be Tifa and Aerith's team to do the rest of the fight. And as you can see, we're not actually halfway down. I would have thought they would have made it so you have to do half the fight and half the other. But no, you do like a third with Cloud and then you do the other 2/3 with Tifa and Aerith. You're going to see me abuse the parry cancelling a lot in this fight just to keep moving, because this fight is annoying. This arena is not good for the fight. The arena that Cloud and Barrett got is better, but the characters that are Tifa and Aerith are better suited for this fight, which I suppose is the way they try and balance it out. But this arena is not good for this boss. I do appreciate, though, the little attention to detail that good old Hojo is still fucking at it, even during this fight. The moment the Swordipede ended up here, all the bridges went in, so we can't leave. You might have even spotted them as it happened. Hojo is letting this experiment take place. He was probably just caught by surprise that the Swordipede went into Berserk and ditched the arena and ended up here. So he had to quickly panic, get rid of the bridges, so they're left to fight it so he can continue to get his combat data. But the Swordipede isn't... Despite the arena and despite my grievances, this fight is kind of easy. It's really not too much of a threat. The biggest threat of it is literally the arena doesn't give you too much room to breathe. And the obstacle that is, the actual central beam that was holding up Genova will get in the way of a lot of your magic spells, which is why you're going to see me use Thundara more often than not, because Thundara lands on the opponent, whilst Fire and Ice have to travel from the user, and they'll just get caught on the pillar. When he's on his last third, he will start doing this overhead fly, where he'll go super high up, so only Aerith can really effectively hurt him, and start dropping these little thunderballs. The thunderballs aren't that bad by themselves, it's just if you get caught by them, you can be stunned by them. And so then this will hit you as it comes round.
Watch yourself. Here goes.
To me personally, I feel this should have been the final boss of this chapter. I feel like once this fight ends, it should have transitioned to a new chapter for the rest of this section. And it doesn't. As I mentioned before, this is only... If you count the mini-boss, this is the second of 5 boss fights. If you don't, this is the first of 4. But it's still a lot for one chapter to do in hard mode.
That's enough.
Again, you triumph! I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Yes, I believe I have just about all the data that I require. Then, we are ready to proceed to the next stage.
Damn Hojo, watching everything we're doing and laughing all the way. But at least we've satisfied his scientific curiosity enough that he's reactivated the lift, or elevator from the US, so we can actually get up to try and rendezvous with Cloud and Barrett. Because I don't know if you noticed, when that Swordipede entered, it kind of slammed the safe doors in that room shut. They're stuck in there. It's why we had that little humorous bit where Hojo was watching them on the camera, and Cloud and Tifa were like kicking and smacking the door like it was somehow gonna change anything. I liked that little comic relief of those two dimwits for how serious and like concentrated and like determined to do the right thing and smart they play themselves off. Big steel door in the way? Ah, whack it. It's up to the girls and Red to actually come back around and say, no, let's actually save them. Let's open this door here. As Aerith listens in, and on the other two being absolute morons trying to hit the door. Ugh.
Hey. Band's back together. Past time we got out of here and made our way to the roof.
There's an elevator just over there. But it will move only at Hojo's discretion.
But the drum dungeon is basically finished now. If you've got to this point, there's going to be no more, like, environmental crawling around. It's going to be entirely a linear path, and then a lot of boss fights. In actuality, the game's going to come up with a warning pretty soon. When we take this lift up, we'll be back up where we first started this section, where Genova was right in front of us. And the game will tell you, once you proceed beyond here, you won't be stopping till the credits. If you wish it, you can hop back in this lift and take it to almost anywhere in the drum to grind up some stuff to kind of get your final preparations in order and make sure that you're 110% prepared for what comes next. But when you are ready, you come back, and like I said, Aerith will give you a firm warning saying once you proceed you won't be coming back. Like, she literally becomes the video game character for a second and kind of says, this is the end of the line. But once we proceed onwards, it's genuinely going to be like a small linear corridor, and then it's boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, chapter end, a mini game section, boss, final boss. You won't have any real room to breathe. There won't be any time for you to backtrack or go talk to Chadley, because Chadley doesn't show up anymore. You won't be able to go grind basic enemies. There aren't any basic enemies. It's literally, the moment you take this lift up, it's nothing but bosses and a mini game in between until the credits. So make sure you are as prepared as you can be. Make sure you're stocked up on everything you feel that you need, and only when you are truly 110% convinced that you can do what comes ahead, proceed onwards. On hard mode, you need to be prepared for a lot more. In hard mode, you need to understand that this chapter does not end for another 3 boss fights. When we go up here, there will be 3 boss fights. 2 of them literally happen back to back. We'll have an opportunity to... Well, so we had this opportunity to rest before the first one. In between the first and second boss, there will be a bench for you to sit on. But the second boss immediately transitions into the third. So you won't have any time in between to sit on a bench to recover. You have to have your resources readily organized immediately to get on it. In hard mode, that... Oh, yeah, to be fair, it means slightly less, because on hard mode you have the... you only get health back from benches anyway, but it means that you need to kind of be... Like, prepare your whole party now, basically. Prepare even Barrett, because Barrett will not participate until the third boss fight, but get some preparations on him now. Yes, because it's a cutscene transition, it will come up with the square menu between the second and third boss, so you can organize it a lot more there. But just kind of make your preempt strategy now, because you're already going to be slightly worn down on resources because of the drum, and because of the brain pod, and because of the swordipede. You're already going to be kind of stressed on resources, and we're not at the hardest part yet. In my opinion, the hardest fight of this chapter is the very next boss we're about to do. I think it, especially on your first run when you're not sure what you're doing, the next boss that we are approaching can take a long time. It still takes me a while, and I know what I'm doing, because I think it's like the longest boss run in the game that you're likely to have. I don't know if it's the longest boss fight I have, because there's the third and final of this trilogy of bosses we're about to do ends up just taking me forever because I have a poor setup, but that's on me. But as a general rule of thumb, it shouldn't take you too long. As we follow this trail of blood that was originally red in the original release, but I get why they changed it to purple and made it like this flamey effect. It makes it seem more unnatural and like nasty and different, and something is wrong kind of thing. It's supposed to make you feel slightly more unsettled because it's unnatural, whatever it is. Especially because the blood dead stops the moment you enter the president's office. We are now at the roof at the 70th floor, and we can hear the distant calls of someone begging for help. If you look around, you already get a decent idea of what actually happened up here. Because you can go around here. This is the president's chair. There's a broken window over here. And there's someone screaming for help. And you can see there's a bend on the fencing as well. Someone was thrown through that. Someone was smacked into the fencing and thrown over the edge, and miraculously is hanging for their life. And so, because it's, you might be able to work out from the voice, it is President Shinra. We're going to spend a little bit not helping him. We're going to just heal up and, you know, sit on this bench, make sure we're all prepared. Which also means I wasted all those items when we was out the lift, because I forgot that you accessed this bench before the fight. I thought the fight happened, then you got access to this bench. And then when you're ready, we'll proceed onwards.
Is anyone out there? Help me! Please! Please help me! Hey! Help me! Please! Help me!
Well, well, well.
Pull me up! I'll give you all the money you want! I have killed plenty of it!
Thing is, I don't want your money.
Please. Just let me live. Everything you want can be yours.
I'm a man of modest dreams. Dropping you from 70 stories up would get me damn near to good.
But not all the way. You want something more, don't you?
More than this right here? Talk to me again like you know me.
Barrett! Stop it!
You're gonna get on TV and tell them. Tell them what you did to Sector 7. That it was you who killed all those people. Then, you're gonna tell them the truth about Avalanche. That Avalanche ain't Wu-Tai or anybody's puppet. That Avalanche fights for the people, the planet. That we fight to hold Shinra to account for its crimes. That is Avalanche. The filthy sewer rats who brought down a Goliath. You tell them that.
Is that really all you want? For your names to be cleared? That is what matters most to you? More than shutting down the reactors? Than the future of the planet itself?
Huh? Damn.
You're lying to yourself even now. Truth, justice, honor, freedom. Vain indulgences everywhere.
Says the dude with the gold gun.
Picture a world without Shinra, without Mako energy, a stagnant, impotent world. Now picture a natural disaster. Who would help the people? Help them recover and rebuild? You? With their old world ruined, will they thank you for the new? I'm going to give you a chance. One last opportunity to consider what your principles are truly worth. But bear in mind that time is of the essence.
And what about you, Mr. President? What are your vaunted principles?
What principles? Did you understand even a single word of what I told you? I know what I want, and I take it. I take advantage of whatever I can, and discard that which I cannot. There is no room for sentiment or guilt.
You son of a bitch!
source of everything.
Enter Genova. I cannot express how giddy I fucking was. Like, my emotions were all over the fucking place. Because President Shinra does get stabbed by Sephiroth in the original, but you find his body, you don't find the man getting stabbed. So that was like, oh shit, you actually watch it happen. Then the whole fucking thing where Barrett gets stabbed, I was like, what's going on? What? That doesn't happen in the original. Barrett doesn't get harmed at all in the original in that sense. Why is he getting stabbed? And then I saw like the Whispers of Fate, and I was like, oh right. Because Fate is the original story of the game, they're fixing it. That's why they immediately like pushed towards Barrett and tried to force Sephiroth out. But Sephiroth, as you've probably already noticed, he's the reason why those spirits of fate are having to show up in the first place. Sephiroth is somehow fucking with destiny. And the fact that he literally, with a swipe of his sword, got rid of all those whispers of fate shows how powerful he has become in defying destiny. And then to be the cherry on top, whilst you're trying to process everything that's happening, that fate is being actively defied. Like Sephiroth literally said, fuck the script. Genova is unleashed on you. You don't fight Genova here in the original game. You don't fight Genova for a lot longer yet, but because it would be, you know, out of this part and in the same vein as where they give Hojo more prevalence and add a few and give Barrett that chapter, because this is significant to the entire story but wouldn't be in part 1 full stop if they didn't do something about it. They put an extra fight in where you actually get to showdown with Genova for the first time and fight Genova Dreamweaver. Genova Dreamweaver is arguably the hardest fight in the game. If you are not ready for it and not sure what to expect, Genova is a brick wall to fight against. She genuinely can be a lot of work to find a way around and figure out how she works and how you're supposed to counter her. And speaking of counters, she has 2 that she can throw back at you. If you do a lot of damage in a small press of time, she will eventually, like, aim a precision shot at whatever character did the most damage and put down like 3,000 health on them in one shot. Well, in hard mode, it's definitely like 3,000, so you have to accept that. But she also has a point where she will go into a rejection stance, where she will make herself immune to magic by casting Reflect on herself, and then will just linger there. Anyone who hits her with a physical attack will immediately be hit with rejection, which is like a light cleaver that will slam down on you. Every now and then, these little purple vortexes will circle the arena. They are permanently attempting to cast Stop. There it is. That's the other counter, by the way. That black shot that just hit us that did 1,300. That's the other counter skill, because Cloud's done a lot of work already, so that's how it works. The fight itself can take a real long time. In fact, I'd say Genova, in terms of fight length, as I said, although there is a fight coming up that ends up taking me personally longer, in terms of average fight length, Genova, I think, is the queen. I think she rules the roost. She takes forever to take down in this fight, because it's a major event, and you need to be made known of just how powerful this thing is. This giant reference to alien films, almost, that Genova truly is. Because yeah, Genova did all this. Look at the arena. We're not in the president's office anymore. We're in a illusionary subspace that Genova made to fight us in. We're in her turf almost immediately. And yeah, there's alternate versions of Genova's appearance. There's this battle form, and I'm not going to get into the detail of why there's different forms. I'm just going to explain what they are, so you know it on like a base level. But there's this battle form that's this disgusting monster that you see before us, with like the skull-like head thing and all the pieces like ripped apart, and it just looks evilish and it does look like an alien parasite monster thing. And there's the other version that we saw Sephiroth take, that was in that pod, where it looks like it's a humanoid being that looks like a woman with scales that's missing a head. I say she does have a head, it's just that head's currently separate from the body, but both of the pieces are still active and functioning and alive. It's a long story, but Genova can just live through that kind of things. Genova is a constant. She, being literally like an alien parasite thing, can continue. And I remember, like, anytime I see someone play Base 7 or go through it,
Thanks so much for everything.
they are always kind of baffled by Genova's presence. They never know what on earth it is and what they're supposed to do, whether it's this or the remake, because the game is, yes, it has a lot of fantasy BS and whatnot, but when you consider it like a traditional fantasy game, it's very grounded in its own reality. Like, it doesn't have like giant fantastical monsters at you right out the gate. It has guards, it has attack dogs, it has machines, you know, like it's a lot more grounded around the Shinra might instead of traditional fantasy. So when this alien HP Lovecraft monstrosity suddenly shows up, people genuinely don't know what to do. They're like, what the fuck is this thing? And I love that. That's the whole point. Jenova's supposed to make you go, what the hell is this? It's supposed to disturb you and throw you off your rhythm by her sheer existence. And it makes the fight in the remake so much more exciting because they nailed it, in my opinion. The fight against Genova feels so different from almost every single other fight in the game by nature of what Genova is. And so as you try and work your way through it and figure out what on earth you're supposed to do to even survive, you're noticing that it doesn't fight like any of the mechs, it doesn't fight like any of the humans, it doesn't fight like anything else. It's Genova, it's its own thing, and you have to deal with it. But as I stop gloating about the brilliance of this fight, the main idea as we break into Phase 2 and get one more good look of its face is that the tentacles surrounding it that come out in Phase 2 are making it more defensive. As you can see, like right now, we get into Phase 2, it's completely immune to all damage. We need to rip apart these tentacles to even be able to harm it. The moment the tentacles go down, however, it will immediately set up the rejection. It will immediately cast reflect on itself and then immediately go into the counter stance. So magic can only harm it, but you can't harm it with magic because it will come straight back at you. It will also, however, when you break all of these, slightly build up the pressure gauge so you can get a stagger through eventuality. But if you want to actually deal with this fight in a reasonable manner and figure out what you're expected to do, there's a few skills that I have been actively going out of my way to try and improve on or just make sure are on the party during significant moments. Breach will remove Reflect. Breach will remove Protect, Shell, and Reflect. Or whatever the renamed version of Protect and Shell is. Obviously, it's like something in Man Award. But either way, it will save your neck. It will remove that Reflect. So what you need to do is have someone have Breach on them, get them to 2 ATB, and kind of not use them. Let them be a background element and do their own thing, not spending ATB, because Breach costs 2 ATB. Also, that sucked. I got hit with 2 counter beams at once, so Cloud was doomed. I don't think he would have survived that even at full health, or maybe he might have by like just absolute bare skin of his teeth. But he got screwed over pretty hard there.
Watch yourself. I'll take care of them.
But it's just be wary as you go of who has Breach, because I think Aerith has it for me, which is why you're seeing me get Aerith to 2 ATB and then doing everything in my power to kind of just leave her there. And then while it's pressured, I immediately swap, get Aerith in, get her to 2 ATB, spell, Breach, cast, and the moment it's cast, I get everyone else to spam magic, because that cast is what allows you to get the pressure on. And the very second you get stagger, you can end Phase 2. And for some of you watching, you might be surprised if you played it yourself to see how quickly I just dealt with Phase 2, because it's literally over. I limit break it and it's over. The Phase 2 is over, and we break into Phase 3. I've seen people spend like half an hour in that fight until they eventually get the stagger push by just building that little bit of pressure every single time they do it. This music!
Here we go. Take the lead.
I'm coming. Okay. That'll do. I'd keep my distance if I were you.
Every damn time.
Here goes.
The damn drop from like that very slow orchestral, like inspired by the original theme, to the drop into Genova's actual battle theme from the original game, but like with the new orchestral flair, pulling the hype to 11. Even in this creepy moment where we're fighting this creature, this thing, this monster, this alien parasite, they still go, no. This is Final Fantasy fucking 7. This is one of the hypest fucking video games of the 90s. It should be honouring that at every opportunity. So you have your horror moment, you have your spookums, you have your atmosphere, you grind your arse out in phase 2, probably on your first run because you don't know what you're doing, and your reward, your payoff is the damn drop harder than Sector 7 that is this damn music. Genova's theme, the phase 3, especially if you played the original, is a godsend. Seriously, I was so... In my original playthrough of this game, I am unapologetic in saying this, I was very loud. I probably, like, wound up my neighbours a lot in my first run of this game, because it does things to you, man. If you've played the original and grown up with it like I have, like, I've known the original Final Fantasy 7 since I was, like, 5 years old. And I love that game so damn much, and seeing it be rebuilt and seeing how they do these moments and how they fucking build you in and like slowly work up the atmosphere and the tension and the horror that is Genova. But then once you get shit going, it says no. Genova's theme is one of the most infamous themes in the game, next to things like One Winged Angel, like the boss theme. This theme needs to hit, and it needs to hit hard, and I think it genuinely aces it. And I think it's because of the atmospheric and slower rendition that we get in the first 2 phases, that come phase 3, when it kicks in, you've already convinced yourself on your first playthrough, oh, they're not going to do the original theme, they're going to do this alternate take. Okay, it is what it is, yada yada. Oh no, they're not, they're hiding it. It's a little surprise secret for you. I'm getting a tear in my eye just talking about it. I love this fucking game. It's got problems, like I said, the physical characters, air combat, it's... I think Maximilian Dude on YouTube said it best. Personally, this game is a 10 out of 10, but on a more technical basis, it's a 9 out of 10. Like, it's almost there. Like, little things like air combat, I hope get cleaned up in later parts, and I think even if they don't do too much for Cloud and Tifa in terms of cleaning up, the nature of having more characters and more options will kind of subdue that problem in of itself. And then yeah, there are also little things like some of the level designs, like this game is very corridor simulated like Final Fantasy 10 and 13. But unlike say 13, there's most of those corridors are interesting. It doesn't have the 13 problem where it feels like a lot of it is just the same area again and again with a different coat of paint. There is enough life put into everything to make it stand out. But yeah, like things like that. But even that, the linear level design, I think will get addressed in part 2 anyway by nature of the more open-endedness of what future parts will be because they're outside of Midgar. Whilst Midgar was always a linear section.
Are you hurt?
Don't think so.
This death was not the one ordained for you by fate.
Thanks.
But you see, the Whispers of Fate are not here to be our enemy, nor are they there to help us. They just make sure the flow of fate is preserved. Barrett's end was not destined to be there, so they revived him. Next time on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we will finally wrap up this chapter and see what else is in store, because yes, Genova was just the opening act of the roof here. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.